All right, guys. So we are live now. I just opened Rhino, right? I mean by double clicking on it right here, and well, that's the first part. Now, what's the first part? What's the first thing that we should set up? What was that? Units, right? Correct. So that's the first thing that we wanted to type, right? Units, and right here you'll see right that we're gonna work with inches to begin with, and we're going to do feet and inches for display precision. Now notice that this is not a the scale. This is not the scale. This is the precision, right? And you know, it'll make more sense in a little bit. Now, since we're working with such tiny pieces, such small pieces, we need to lower the resolution or the precision. I'm sorry. So let's do what we did right there, 1/32 this morning, right? And we'll hit OK, and nothing happens right there. So I'm gonna be following the let me close this, the file that we used this morning as a reference, and even another one that I worked to prepare morning's class. Now this is the Rhino environment, and as you can see, it works with multi-views, and we're gonna see how those act. The first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna go into our front viewport. I'm gonna maximize that. And the next thing that we need to do is set ourselves up with some layers. All right, notice that you might have some layers when you open your Rhino. There's some default. There's like another version that comes with like layer 1, 2 through 5 or 6, something like that. But we can just rename them, right? So we do that by clicking right here. So I'm just gonna create 4 new layers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to, so let's see if I remember. And again, how do I, so if you double click on it slowly, right click and then click, you can edit the name, right? So the first one I'm going to call this cheat, right? The second one I'm going to call guidelines, right? The third one I'm going to call polygons, and the fourth one I'm going to call or name it lines. Right? Now, right now, all of the layers have different names, but they have the same color right here. So this is the visibility of the layer, this is locking the layer, and this is the color of the layer, right? So if we click on that area right there, I'm going to give the sheet a sort of a dark gray, right? Guidelines, I'm going to do something bright that I can see, such as a red, right? Polygons, something bright as well that I can see. So maybe I change the hue to something bright, like a green, right? So I'm gonna send that right there for the polygons. And then lastly, the lines, right? I'm gonna do something something light, right? Something like that. Okay. Now, you guys see this check mark right there? That means that that's the layer that I'm active. So right now, if I type rectangle, oops, rectangle, enter, and I draw something, right? And I select it, notice down here where it says default, that gives me the layer, right? So again, if I click there, notice that it's right there. But if I click on that menu and let's say I send it to guidelines, notice that it turns it into a red line. And the same that if I select it and send it to polygons, it should be a green line right there. So I can change the attributes or the layer that it's on after drawing, but I could also just set myself with the right layer before I begin to draw. And the way that we do that is we just click on this. There's a, I don't know if you can see it, there's this column right here, right? So if you click right there, notice that the check mark changes places. That means that that layer is active. So right now I'm on their sheet. One of the first commands that we're going to use is that rectangle. So I go ahead and type rectangle, right? Enter. Now, Rhino, just like AutoCAD, It's a command-based software, meaning that you have some sort of a dialogue between the software, right? You want to do something, you type it, and the software keeps asking you, right? It's like, hey, I need more information, right? So it keeps asking for information. So what's the first thing that it's asking us for right here? The first corner of the rectangle, right? And that could be anywhere, right? So if I click there, right, notice that I have established the first corner of the rectangle. Now there's another corner of the rectangle, and I can do that. All right. Now we're trying to draw the sheet, right? We're doing the initial tessellation of the polygon, right? Do you guys remember how big was that sheet? And a half by 11, right? Which is your letter size sheet, right? So now we know how to draw a rectangle. Let's learn how to draw a rectangle with specific dimensions, right? So again, I type rectangle. And again, I pick a point to draw. I click, so that's my starting point. Now, how do you specify a certain size or dimension? It's a little formula. And actually, certain books might use a different one, but this is how I learned it, actually, from AutoCAD. You start with at, right? The symbol at, and it's just your length, your square formula, right? Length times width, meaning that we establish first the width and then the height. And we do this by typing, right? So 8.5. You don't, since we're working on inches already, you don't have to specify that it's inches, but I'm very paranoid, right? I mean, when I'm working on this right here, so I do it anyway. So I specify the inches, and the inches is the quotes mark. So add 8.5 inches, comma, 11 inches, enter, and that would be that. All right, gives us this. Now, again, if you know me, I am very precautious when drawing digitally. So what's the next thing that I want to do in regards to this rectangle that I just drew? Check it, right? I mean, just like anything that you're making, right? I'm like, all right, let me just double check that was correct, right? So what can I use to double check? All right, so there's two, right? There's dimensions and then distance. But the one that we want to use for right now would be distance, right? We'll talk about dimensions in a little bit, right? So if I type distance, right? And just for the record, right? Distance is more of a on the process, right? Distance is just, you know, you just want to check a measurement. Dimension, you actually draw it on the drawing, like you actually dimension the drawing. So that's a little different. Distance is just for you, right? To know how big things are. Dimensions is actually going to draw them right there. For right now, we'll use distance, right? So I type distance, enter. Now, I want to measure the size of this rectangle that I just drew. If you guys see right now my cursor, you see those white lines and those points right there. Right now, it's doing what's called snapping to them. Right, those are all drafting aids that help me be a little bit more precise on what I'm doing. Right, so make sure that your OSNAP is on, right, and that OSNAP stands for Object Snap. And then once OSNAP is on, you want to make sure that these guys are on, right? So end, and then this is just to begin with, right? So end, right, midpoint, center point, intersection, perpendicular. But you want to move over here, Christopher, so you can, yeah. Just if you're having a hard time seeing from there, that little corner. Yes, sir. All right. So, right. So once I have the end on, right, I can check my distance from there to there. And again, where is it showing? It shows right here. This is called your command line. Right? Distance 8.5 inches right there. I can type distance again to check my vertical distance, or I can just do a right click. Right? Right click repeats the last command. Right? So from there to there, that would be 11 inches. Right? That's correct. Now it's important that you're using OSNAP, right? Because if I turn it off, right, and I do a distance, and let's say that you're eyeing it, right? Like put más o menos like right there, you know, to like right here, right? And it's off, right? 8 and 15-30 seconds. And that's, I was using the analogy, right? This generation's analogy of the memes, right? You've seen the Drake's meme, like, right? Those are the kind of things like you really don't want to have those kind of dimensions, right? So, so nice little round off dimensions like that. Yes, right? Weird, 15-30 seconds, 13/16, right? No, right? Like that, 17-30 seconds. Because later on, number one, you're not going to be able, well, you're going to have a hard time building that, right? Like, oh man, I have to measure 17-30 seconds, right? And number two, right? The Once you start adding those dimensions among themselves, either you're going to have extra space or you're going to have less space, and it's just not good. So OSNAP is your friend. So let's use it. So we have set up our drawing sheet. Excellent, right? I'm gonna copy this right here to the side. I'm gonna use OSNAP right here to copy it, right? I'm gonna, if you hold down Shift, it aligns, right? Notice that right now it's kind of like floating right there, but if I hold down Shift, nicely arranged. That I can make as many copies, right, as I want, right? Or I can just right click and exit out of the command. So I made a copy. Okay. Now next, right, we were trying to find the center point, right? So I'm going to go into the guidelines and I can type line, enter. And again, I snap from that end to this end, right click, snap to that end, right? And we have this intersection of those two lines that gives me that center of the sheet. Okay. Now let's talk about our polygons. Okay. So how were these polygons being drawn? What was their criteria, or what was their how do you know how to draw them, or how big? Okay, with the compass, which you drew a circle with the compass, and what was the qualities or attributes of the circle? Correct. All right. So it was a polygon that was circumscribed, right? I think so. Within a 1-inch radius circle. All right. So let's do just that. Okay. So we can type circle. Notice that I am on the right layer, which is guidelines, right? So I type circle. Now, what's it asking me for? The center of the circle, right? Hey, human, give me a center. I'm like, okay, right there. And I click. Now, notice that right now it's saying right here diameter, right? Diameter to 1 inch. Okay, what was our diameter? 1 inch. All right, so that's correct, right? So I said it wrong, right? The radius is 1/2 inch, right? But the diameter is 1 inch. So if I type 1 inch, enter, right? It draws that. So again, I type circle, enter. I specify the center, type 1 inch, enter. Or I repeat the command, right? Specify the center, and notice right here it says diameter, but these are all different options that exist within the circle command. I can also draw a circle specifying the radius. So if I go ahead and click there, notice that now my cursor changes, and what will be my radius this time? 0.5, right? So enter. So again, I come to distance right here, make sure that quadrant is on, and I can measure from that quadrant to that quadrant right there, and it's 1 inch. All right, and just for fun, let's do one more circle. All right, let's do another one, and I'm on radius. So notice that it already is right there 1/2 inch, so I don't even have to type it. I can just enter because it was the last. It saves the last setting or the last dimension that you use. Okay, so what's going to go inside of each of these circles? The polygons. So let's do that. All right, so I'm going to jump into the polygons layer. All right. And what would be the command to draw the polygons? Polygon, right? You guessed that, right? So we type polygon. You totally guessed, right? You're getting the hang of it. So polygon, right? Enter. Now, center of inscribed polygon. Ooh, it's asking us for a center, right? Okay, right. So notice that OSNAP has to be on and center has to be checked on so that I move my cursor slowly. Look, look, look. I move, I move, I move. And then it automatically snaps to the quadrant. But if I keep moving, it's snapping to the center. You see that CEN? It's telling you, like, hey, if you click right there, you're going to snap to the center, right? So I have a center and I have the polygon. Now let's do it by order, right? I mean, the polygon with the least amount of sides with it was what? Triangle, right? Which had so many sides? 3, right? So if again, it's asking me for the corner of the polygon, but if I keep moving along the line, right? Remember that it says what it says right there? Number of sides, right? So if I click there, not number of sides, I type 3 and then press enter. You see how that got updated, right? So there we go, circumscribed, inscribed, right? Inscribed was that. All right. So I still need to specify the corner of the polygon, and I'm going to use again the quadrant is on, and I'm going to snap to that. Hey, come on, come on. Oh man, there we go. So it's there. All right. So we have our first polygon. So I right click. Again, I find the center. I specify the number of sides to be 4, right? And let me turn off perpendicular so it's not messing with me. There we go. Right click, center, number of sides, 5, enter, specify that point right there. Right click, number of sides, 6, enter, find the center, snap to that, and right there. Good so far? All right, good. So we can move on. Let's see. So let's make a copy. I'm gonna make a copy of this right here. Bring it over here. And since I'm using the square right as the example, I'm gonna copy that. So notice that I'm doing a selection right from the top left to the bottom right. I select those two, and I'm gonna type COPY for copy. Enter. It's gonna ask me point to copy from. I'm gonna copy from the center right there, and I'm gonna copy it to this other center right there. I'm going to do a copy, right? Oops, right. I'm going to do a copy, right, of this thing right here. Bring it over here, and I can then start creating my grid, right? So how do I do this? Well, I can get rid of these guidelines right there. So delete, and that circle right there, delete. I got that. So I'm going to copy this right here just so that we keep track of all of our steps. Now, just the same way that you were using your square, right, in order to create the grid, we're going to use this square to create the grid. Now, we need to actually extract, right, or use each of its lines, each of its sides right there. So the command that we're going to use is called explode. I'm going to explode that polygon. And it went from an enclosed polygon. You see, right? I click on it right here, and it's one single object. It went to 4 separate objects right there. So it segments this. Well, it does that. It explodes the curve into 4 curves. All right. I'm gonna copy that again, right? Bring it over here. So then, what were you doing? Well, you were then projecting your lines, right, with your drawing tools to the sheet, and we could do that with the command extend. And so extend, enter. Now, what is command one? What is extend one, right? Well, select boundary objects or enter extension length. So in this case, we want to specify a boundary, and what would our boundary be? The sheet, right? Correct. Right. So the sheet is our boundary, right? Press down when enter. Press down when enter. Press enter when done. Right. So I am done. I am enter. Right. So right enter. Now select curves to extend, and we just go in and do this. Boom, 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 boom. And remember that I asked you guys to draw this with a color, right? I mean, and you know, leave those out when you guys were extending them, projecting them. So we have that. All right. So we have converted this closed polygon into linear segments, which then we have extended and projected to create our the beginning of our grid. I'm gonna copy this, bring it over there. Now, you were using your tools again to mimic or to tessellate, right, the entire field. And that's really easily done right here if we use our command copy. There's many ways that you could do this, but you know, let's practice with copy. So I type copy, enter. I select this line that I want to copy. We're gonna do what's called a copy with the reference. What does that mean? I'm gonna copy it, right, so that I copy it from that intersection, and it's going to snap onto this other intersection. That way, it guarantees that it's the same width, right, than the original. And I can keep doing that, 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 that right there, and I just keep going until I fill this whole thing. All right. And when I'm done, what do I press? Enter. Right. I'm done right there. Now we gotta clean this up a little bit. Right. So what command could I use for that? Trim. Right. Trim. Enter. All right. Now select cutting object. What is my cutting object? The sheet. Right. So I select the sheet. Press enter when done. Enter. And I can. And then it says select objects to trim. Pressing shift to extend. No, I just want to trim. So I click, 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 click. But you know, we're lazy, so I could also do it with a selection like this. And everything gets trimmed out like that. We're not lazy, we're smart. Efficient, we're efficient. All right. Okay. So press enter when done. I'm done. All right. I'm gonna repeat that same action on the bottom right here. So I copy, enter. So I copy from there to there, 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 there. Notice that I can keep going. Make sure that your smart track is on, right? This tool right here, smart track, that's what helping me keep everything neat. Again, trim, right? ER, enter. Select my cutting object, right? Do my selection like that. Do my selection like this. Enter. Now things are looking good, except that here, for example, right? What do we need to do to this line? Extend it, right? So extend, enter. Select the sheet again, right? Enter. Click to extend, and since I already have the command on, I'm going to extend it on both sides right there. Enter to exit the command. And let's repeat, right? So copy this right here, boom. Wait, that's not right, right? So you can see visually that I snapped on the rock at the wrong point. So undo and redo work the same way that most other softwares, right? Control Z as in zebra to undo. So I'm going to type copy again. Select that line. So again, I copy from there to there, to there, to there, to there. And again, there are other ways that you can do this, and hopefully as you guys become more efficient with this, you'll find those other ways. But right now, we're learning the software while we are also working on our exercise. Again, trim, select this as the cutting object, like click there, click there, click there, click there. I can do an extension, right, to extend that, and I think we're good. Last part right here will be copy this line right here, right, copy it from this point right there, so I have that reference. And I can do just that. Come back and clean it, trim, enter, select this right here, do that, do that. All right, come back and clean it, right, or fix it, extend that to that, and that to that. And that right there should give us your grid, right, as perfect as you guys had it by hand. I'm gonna copy this, select this, right, from here to here. Now I want to send the green lines onto the right layer, which is the lines layer. So we're gonna do how to select or how to remove objects from a selection, right? So if I select everything in here right here, because I want to change the attributes of all of these lines except for the sheet. So if I select and then I hold Control, if I'm not mistaken, yes, you hold Control and you click, you remove from selection. If you hold Shift and you click or select an object, you add to the selection. Right? So hold Control, click, you remove. Hold Shift and click, you add to the selection. So I'm going to remove from the selection. Notice that right now they're all selected. And right while we're at it, notice that what color is the selection color? Yellow, right? So anytime that you select something, it's going to be yellow. So be mindful about using yellow as one of your layers because you might confuse it by being selected. So I'm going to change it to lines layer, and we have that. So far so good. All right, and let me just bump this up a little bit because it's getting kind of hard to see. There we go. And the color. All right. So let's see what's next. Next is our polygons, right? How to use that grid to draw our polygons. All right. So we have that. I'm going to copy, right, this again, and bring it out here, bring it there. Now I'm going to start drawing more polygons and doing more things, but the first thing that I want to create, right, would be what? Layers. All right. So again, how do we do that? Well, again, do 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, we name these, right? Square 1, square 2, square 3, square 4. And again, I'm trying to mimic the colors of the papers. Maybe we'll do a dark blue for that, right? And then for square 2, I don't know. I don't see some colors that I like for that. So I don't know. So maybe some comes from over here. Maybe we'll do that. Right. That. Remove the saturation and create that kind of like palette right there. And let's create 4 more. Right, and this would be the halves. So again, just trying to be quick with this. I'll just do HL 2. Right, and again try to give these some sort of their colors. So we talked about that neon salmon, some sort of purple, or what was it? I don't know, like some sort of fuchsia. What was it, guys? Yeah, like a sure, like a sure, and something like that. This one's more like a purple, and then this one's more of lilac, right? Really light. And we can always change them later on if the colors are not working for us. Like for right now, I'm seeing that these two are very similar, so it's going to be kind of hard to differentiate them. Now that one's too similar to this one, but you know, we can turn it maybe a little bit muddy. Do that. All right. Again, whatever works for you guys. All right. So that's fine and all. That's fun, right? Now let's start using our grid in order to start drawing our forms, right? So I can, or I should, right? So I'm going to start drawing, right? But what I don't want to do, right? Hi Siri, right? What I don't want to do is start messing with the grid like that, right? Because the grid is, again, remember, everything that does help me keep things in order, right? So I'm going to undo that right there, right? What should I do to my grid so that I don't mess with it? Lock the layer, right? So lines, you see that little lock right there, right? Lock it. And I'm going to lock the sheet as well, right? So lock it right there. Now notice that I try to select it, try to, you know, move it, and nothing happens. This one's do, right? Because they're not what? Locked, right? No, well, yeah, they're not in the lines layer, or that their layer is not locked. All right. So we have that. Now let me show you, right, how we're gonna do this. So, you know, we come on here into the square one layer, right? And then we learned how to draw a polygon with the polygon command, but we can also use the polyline. So polyline, P-O-L-Y, line, right? Enter. And here we go. So we're gonna draw our first square, which was a 1 by 1. And so I snap right to that intersection. I come over here, do that, and once I click on the origin or where I started, command closes. All right. Click on square 2, right click to repeat that last command. And I'm drawing over the grid, right? I'm using that as my guide since they're snapping to them, right? It could be, it's a very accurate, right? So I start doing that right there, that right there, 3, 3, and the last one, right? Whoops, not off, but on. And then we do for the 4 one, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4. And again, I'm doing a right click and moving around, and that's what's called panning. I'm panning around. It allows me to see things better, right? So I have those drawn there. And I do the same, right? So I go into HL1, right click to repeat that command, right? 1, 2, 3. Now I cut in the middle since we're doing the halves, and I do that. This one right here. There. 3, 3, half. And come back here on this layer right here. 4, 4, 4. Yeah, looks familiar. All right. So I'm going to select this again and again. As you're going through this, just keep an eye on my selections. I haven't really talked about it, but notice that there's two types of selections, right? There's the solid one, which is from the top left to the bottom right corner, right? Or from the bottom left to the top right. Or there's the dash one, right, which is from the bottom right to the top left, or from the top right to the bottom left. There's a difference between those, and it's important that we know what they are. And I'll eventually talk more about that. So I'm doing a selection, right? And since right now the layer is locked, it doesn't matter what kind of selection I do, but then when it's important is we copy that. type copy, enter, and we copy it. All right. Now it's important that we also talk about certain, I guess, in Rhino terms, right? There's only, well, there's multiple, right? But three of the main objects types that we use, right, are curves, surfaces, and polysurfaces, right? So right now, what we've been drawing with is what type? Curves, right? These are all, you can look at, you can see them or picture them as wires, right? I can see through them, right? These are all just, for lack of a better word, lines. There's no you know, when you were cutting your papers, right, there's no surface, right, there's no plane. We need to create those planes, right? So that's what we're going to do. So the way that we do that, I'm going to go back to the front view. All right, so I'm going to make another copy right here, that, bring it over here. Okay, now let me just, yes, now we're going to use a new command, right? So we have, so again, these are all lines or curves. We want to create surfaces. So if we go to our surface tools over here to the left, right, notice that it says surface from 3 to 4 points. And there's this also little arrow right here. You click on that, there's more tools right there. What we want, it's called surface from planar curves. Or, right, if I click on it, you'll see that the command for that is planar srf, right, for planar surface. Planar surface. Now select planar curves to build surface. Right, check this out. So I'm going to select this guy right there, and then right click. And what happened? Huh? I'm in the wrong layer to begin with. And how do you know this, Valeria? This is a different color, right? It's pink. Right? So if I select it, right, I see like, oh wait, I'm on HL4. Right? And even better, right, this brings us right. So it should look right like that. It should look like a full color, like it's colored in the inside, but it's not. Why is that? Well, that means your display modes. All right, so if you go under this little arrow right here, notice that I'm under wireframe view, but if I go to shaded, right, it colors it in. And just like Valeria mentioned, I should select it, go into its layer, change to the right layer, which is that one right there. And just on display modes, let me go to maybe this model that I have over here, right? Because if you are on wireframe, this is how you're gonna see things, right? Just as a wireframe. If you go to shaded, notice that they get colored in. If you go to a render, for example, they start looking differently, right? A little more realistic. Right? And you know, there's all these other different methods, right? Ghosted, right? Again, you kind of like see through things. The same through X-ray, but a little bit more flat. You don't perceive the depth as good as with ghosted, right? And then you have technical, right, which starts giving us some dashed lines for things that are hidden. Artistic. Okay, I said artistic. Oh, okay. Rhino was just thinking. It gives us that kind of look, right? That it's hand drawn, right? Or pen, right? Etc. Etc. Right. So these are all your display modes. Okay. So that's something that again, a lot of students are like, Mr. Like my model looks weird, right? Or something is like, oh, your display mode, right? You're on wireframe, right? Or you need to be on shaded. So once that we know that, we can repeat this command right here. So again, it was planar, right, surface, right? So I can select all of these right here at the same time, right? And then right click, and then I just take care of their layer individually. Was that right? I don't know. That was right. Yes, that was right. That one right there. That one right there. And that one's right, actually. That's the only one that is right. Right. All right, guys. Good. So let's copy this one more time. Actually, before we do that though, let's see something, right? Because if I click here, right, check, right? If I click there, I get this menu right here. Now this also happens a lot, and it throws us off when we're learning the software, right? This selection menu. It just basically means this: the place where I clicked, which was there, there's a number of objects sharing that place. What do we have there? Well, the software is telling us that there's a curve, a pink curve, a blue curve, a blue surface, and a pink surface. And notice that as I go through them, it gives me a little white outline. I don't know if you guys can see, right, as I move through the menu, because the software doesn't know which one do I want. And the fact is that I don't want to have now the curves, because I just needed them as a construction method, but now I don't need them, right? So in order to save ourselves some trouble next along the way, let's actually select just the surfaces by, again, I'm gonna escape, right? So I select the surface and then I hold shift and then I just select the surfaces, and I do that, and then I type copy, I enter. Now if I click here in the center, how many objects should I see once I click on this place right here? 2, right? Which are the 2 surfaces, right? The pink surface and the blue surface, just like Sebastian said. All right, good, guys. Oops, sorry, Christopher. All right, so we have our surfaces done. Now we could, right, technically start doing the exercise just like you guys were doing it right here on paper. However, right, something happened, right? If I start moving, right, certain things on top of each other, right, start doing that, and maybe even start moving this on top of this, right? What's happening? What? I don't know, man. I don't know. Yes, come on, yes. Well, I'll tell you what's happening, right? So remember, in the Rhino terminology, these surfaces are infinitely thin. So right now they're sharing space, right? Something that we cannot do, right? I mean, even paper or even the thinnest thing, fabric, you name it, has a thickness, right? In real life. Here it doesn't, so we need to give them thickness, right? So that's where we start getting kind of like this glitch, right? You see, again, the software is like, well, there's 3 surfaces on top of each other. Which one do I render, right? I mean, do I do the blue, the purple, the other blue, right? The reality is that they need to have a thickness. So I'm going to undo just so we can do that. And how can we achieve this, guys? It's a command in order to turn them 3-dimensional. Extrude, the almighty extrude, right? So I made a copy right here, right? So we type extrude surface. Extrude surface, right? So enter. Select surfaces to extrude, right? Say that, I want to do that one right there. Press enter when done. I'm just going to do one so that you can see how this behaves. And so right click. Notice, right, that is extruding. Now, what's one of the first things that we realize that is off? The layer, right? Because it's what? Pink, right? That's okay. We find out earlier today that while you're within the command, you can just double click on the right layer, right? And it'll change the layer color, right? So you can do right? Yeah. Now I'm gonna exaggerate the extrusion to do it like that, right? Now notice that it did it, but it's open, right? That's something that we do not want, right? We want it to be enclosed, right? We want it to be a closed object. So I'm going to undo, and I type extrude surface, right? Again, and there are some settings that we want to make sure that we have right. So I select that surface. The first of them is that right here under solid, it said equal to yes. So I just click on it. Notice that it gives me, it caps it, right? It gives me like the lid, right? The top port and bottom portion of it. And we also want to tell it to delete the input, right? Because if I leave it to no, right, and I extrude, it's gonna keep happening the same thing with the menu, right? I click in here and I have both the original surface and I have the extrusion, and I do not want that, right? So I can do extrude surface, select the surface, enter, solid, yes, delete input, yes. Now, according to which way you have your mouse, if you have it, or your cursor, I'm sorry, it extrudes to that direction, right? So if I have it behind the form, it extrudes to the back. If I have it to the front, it extrudes to the front. Now, how thick would you say this paper is? Good question, right? I don't know. Just give me a number. 1/32, says Natalia. Very confident, right? So I can do that, right? So notice that I'm typing right there. So it says extrusion distance, right? So I'm erasing, right? Extrude. So let me start again, right? So I type extrude surface, right? Enter, select the surface, enter, position my cursor to the front so that it extrudes on the front. I can type 1/32, and I can do, but wait, let's make sure that our settings are correct. Solid, yes. Delete input, yes. Again, 1/32, enter. You cannot see it really well from there, but if I zoom in, right, now we have a three-dimensional object. Which again, if you look, if even your paper that you're writing on right now, your sketchbook, right now it might seem like no thickness, but you look at it microscopically and it will have a thickness, right? So that's what we're trying to mimic, or we're trying to achieve with these extrusions. Okay, now since again we're very, very cautious with our work, and I just did an extrusion, what do I want to verify? The thickness, right? And how can I do this? Distance, right? So I type distance, enter, right? So I do that, 1/32. 1/32. All right. So we are good. Now, let's say just for sake that we specify the extrusion length B, right? Let's say that we measure the paper. Now, you know what, guys? 1/32 is too chunky, right? Actually, the thickness of the paper is 1/64, right? So we'll do 1/64, enter. And okay, we're good. And then again, I was in Munoz class, so I'm gonna check my work, right? Because I'm a really good student, right? So I type enter, right? I'm gonna check right here, right? The distance. And then I go over here and it says distance equals to 0. How is that possible if it has a thickness right there? Correct. All right, guys. So remember how we started today, right? If you type back units, enter. Remember that we specify a precision of 1/32. It's not going to measure anything that is smaller than 1/32. Well, it measured it, but what does it do to it? It rounds off, right? Hey, anything under 1/32 is non-existent because I don't recognize it as a software. Not me, the software, right? Yeah. So, right? So again, be very careful with that because this has happened to me, right? I mean, and you start measuring things and you're like, oh yeah, it's 3/4 of an inch. Okay, great. And then your tolerance was set up really higher and actually it was something smaller. One of them, it's not a problem, but once you start stacking them, 1 30-second plus 1 30-second plus 1 30-second times 10, 10 30-seconds, that's gonna add up, right? 10 30-seconds, right? 5 over 16, that's 5/16, right? So that's something, right? So just be careful with that, right? So again, you either have to, what do we have to change then? The tolerance of the units, right? So if I type distance, again, I measure, it should be what? 0, right? But if I type units, again, increase the precision to 1/64, right? Okay, right? And I type distance, right? Rock and roll. Huh? Awesome. Okay, good. So, however, it wasn't only the paper, right? I mean, you were actually pasting, right? I mean, some of these figures onto some other surface, right? So we're gonna exaggerate that, or well, we're gonna account for that, right? Um, so let's see. Right now, this is set to a distance of 1/32, no, 1/64, right? So let's say that I already drew it like that, right? I was like, oh man, like this is already 1/64, but I need to make it thicker, right? So how can I do that? Well, I can use the command scale 1D, right? That would be scale in one direction, right? So if I type that, enter, select the object, and I want to scale from here to here. Notice that it's just growing in one direction, and I'm going to make it equal to 1/16, right? Distance, verify from there to there, 1/16. Why? Because I'm now accounting for the thickness, let's say, of your chipboard, right, or whatever, right? I mean, the surface that you use to glue your paper on. Right, so we have that, and from there, right, I mean, I can just do an extrude surface, right, and I can do them all together, right, all at the same time, right, and I can specify, right, 1/16, right, except that, oops, except that I know that I have to come back in here and change that right to that, so I'd be that right there. Okay, so we go from, again, curves, which are the wireframe, into surfaces, which are planes but infinitely thin, to polysurfaces. That, again, and that's why they're called polysurfaces, right? Because, right, they have multiple surfaces, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now I'm realizing that something went off, right? What happened here? The direction of my extrusion, right? It went on the opposite direction, right? So I'm going to undo. Ooh, I'm gonna have to. Well, there's multiple ways that we can address this, right? I mean, if I keep doing undo, I'm just changing the layers, right? Which, it's not the end of the world, but that takes more time. So technically, what could I do just to send them to the correct plane? Thank you, Valeria. Right, so move, enter, select all of the surfaces right here, right? Move them from there to there. And now they're sharing the same plane. Okay, let's see, how are we doing on our little storyline right here? All right, so that's been about 55 minutes. Let's maybe pause this right